जब हम न होंगे तब हमारी खाक पर तुम रुकोगे, चलते चलते अश्कों से भीगी चांदनी में एक सदा सी सुनोगे, चलते चलते वहीं पर कहीं हम तुमसे मिलेंगे, बन की कली बन के सबा बागे वफा में, रही न रही हम महका करेंगे, बन के कली बन के सबा बागे वफा में, रही न रही हम. Hey guys, moms, dads, kids and pets. I'm Sangeeta Bahadur and I'm here with you once again today to conclude the tale I left unfinished last week. I totally sympathize with your impatience to know what happened in the end, but just let me remind those of you who are either joining me for the first time today or somehow missed part 1 of Beyond Life's Misty Maze to go back and listen to that first. And when you've done so, go and listen to the first 3 episodes of the series in case you haven't. I promise you'll enjoy them to bits. The links are given in the description, so all you have to do is to go click on them. So do that. Righto. So now let's take up where we left off with our traumatized protagonist Lachak already in the flight from Chandigarh to Delhi after having received the message that her fiancé and soon-to-be husband has been shot and is battling for his life in an army hospital in Delhi. So, here we proceed with the rest. The flight landed an hour later. The cabin crew held all other passengers back as Lachak raced out of the aircraft and towards the exit, praying there was someone waiting to take her to Tuvix. She couldn't waste time looking for a cab or booking one. It had already taken her far too long to reach Delhi, and every passing minute was critical. She paused just outside the doors to scan the score or so people lounging against the waist-high barrier, waiting to welcome their guests. She could see nobody she recognized. Please, oh please, let somebody be here. She raced past the barrier and hurtled into the cool night, oblivious to the light autumn drizzle. She squinted at the cars and taxis lining the curb and the drivers getting in or out, and wanted to scream with frustration. Where the hell was the vehicle she had been promised? Where was Payoj? Where was Aham? Anyone from the family, for God's sake. She dashed a hand across her tear-swollen eyes and unzipped her tote, reaching inside to scrabble around for her mobile. She needed to call Payoj, find out what had happened. If the car was stuck in traffic, a very real possibility even at 1 in the morning. Dialing an Uber might actually be the quicker option. Her thumb had just touched the keypad though when she heard someone call her name. She knew the voice, but in a frantic state, couldn't quite place it. Peering into the halogen-spangled darkness, she saw a man's shadowy figure step around a car parked way down the road and walk rapidly towards her. "Ma'amji!" he was calling out, waving an arm. "Here, Lachak ma'am, the car's here. You have luggage? Need help?" He evidently saw her hesitate, maybe read the uncertainty in her posture, because he stepped under a street light and called out again, "It's me, ma'amji, Jaswinder. You remember? They asked me to pick you up because I live just a kilometer away and you already know me. Come, get in. We need to bring you to the hospital quickly. They said you are the only one who can help Commander, sir." Of course, she thought, relief drenching her like a bucket of cool water in summer. Jaswinder, the calm, cheerfully polite and very sincere neighborhood taxi driver whom Tuvi's mother and aunts often used when the family cars were not available. To all intents and purposes, he had been the family's fourth chauffeur for several years now and had often dropped Lachak home after her impromptu visits to the family. Tuvi and his parents had, she knew, helped him out whenever he needed money, practical help, or just advice. When he had married off his only sister 4 months ago, Tuvik had personally gifted him a substantial amount of money and arranged other facilities for the occasion, refusing to let him repay any of it. She had attended the wedding with Tuvi and his parents and had witnessed the family's doting gratitude. She had felt her heart swell with love for the amazing man by her side, a man who now lay fighting for his life in a hospital bed simply because he couldn't walk away from someone in distress. She had always known that because the first time they had met, she'd been the one in distress, injured and disoriented after a freak accident. She slid into the taxi's back seat, letting Jaswinder fuss over her comfort. As the cab pulled away from the curb, she began trying every number she had on her mobile. Payoj, Tuvi's parents, his sisters, aunts and uncles, other cousins. For some reason, every single number appeared to be out of range, unreachable or switched off. She didn't realize she was whimpering with frustration till she heard Jaswinder say bracingly, "Don't worry, ma'amji. We are just 15 minutes away now. I will get you there in time, I promise. Commander sir will be fine." She raised her head, vaguely surprised to find that they were already crossing the Vasant Kunj malls, glittering bright against the night sky. "Thank you, Jaswinder," she whispered, forcing herself to acknowledge his concern. "Is he... When they spoke to you, did they say how he's doing?" "He's a very brave man, ma'amji," Jaswinder told her, meeting her eyes in the rearview mirror, his gaze intent, determined. A warrior, a fighter. He does not know how to give up. Not for nothing was he honored with the Kirti Chakra last year, making us all so proud. He is fighting for his life with the same courage with which he has always fought for his country and his people. And our prayers and blessings are fighting right by his side. All he needs now is you, ma'amji, to win this battle. And it is my job to get you there. After a moment, he added quietly, "I would gladly give him the last drop of my blood if I could, And so would many others, but they say his blood is different, very rare. They are looking for other donors, but right now, you are the only one who can help him, Manji. I'd do anything for him, Jaswinder, she admitted huskily, rewarding his faith with a tiny smile. Even if no other donor comes forward, my blood alone will suffice to keep him alive. I swear. And now, before we reach the hospital, tell me how your sister is doing. Is she happy with her husband? So, understanding her need for distraction, he launched into a cheerful running commentary about his family, how delighted everyone was that his sister was expecting, how his youngest brother had just found himself a great job, how well his 2 children were doing at school, and how lucky he was to have such a loving and caring wife. Lachak half listened, soothed by the gentle positivity in his voice, allowing it to dissolve the hard knots of panic and grief that had formed within her. They swung towards Shubroto Park, the distinctive pyramid-shaped hospital gates looming to their right. Her heart jumping into her throat, she leaned forward, fingers already curling around the grip of her overnight case. And suddenly, before they took the U-turn from under the flyover, the car coughed and stuttered to a stop. She heard the irritable whine of the ignition as Jaswinder attempted to restart the engine. But the car refused to budge. She heard him mutter something under his breath before he turned to look at her. "We've run out of diesel, Mamji," he admitted. "I was in such a hurry to get to the airport that I forgot to fill the tank. And now the needle is standing way below empty. Thank God that it happened here, so close to the hospital. I'm truly sorry, but you will just have to cross the road on foot. I'll run and get a can of diesel to start this piece of junk and drive it to the petrol pump across the road." She had grabbed her case and was out of the car almost before he finished speaking, poised to sprint across to the hospital. "No problem," she said. How much?" "Please don't embarrass me, Mamji," he protested, eyes glinting with unshed tears. "Think of this as a very small thank you for all the kindness that this family has showered on me through the years. Just go now and help him live. That will be payment enough. Goodbye, Mamji. God bless you both." She ran across the road, dodging the thin trickle of late-night traffic. When she looked back from the gate, both Jaswinder and his car had vanished, presumably towards the petrol pump. But hadn't the car run out of petrol? So how? She shook her head impatiently and turned away. The question could wait. Right now, all that mattered was Tuvi. The corridor outside the ICU was seething with people. Familiar faces, and several she recognized vaguely from family photographs. Subdued panic pervaded the air like a bitter spray. She could see Tuvi's parents clinging to each other, faces ravaged with dread. Payod saw her first, and his eyes widened with surprised relief. "Lachak, at last!" he called out softly, striding forward and drawing everyone's attention to her. "Where on earth have you been? We must have called your mobile at least 100 times in the last half hour. Why was it constantly out of range?" I have no idea, she replied dazedly, heart beating so hard that she could hardly hear herself. I called all of you too, but couldn't get through. How's Tuvi? Is he? He's hanging on, one of the aunts informed her, giving her a quick hug. We've been counting the minutes, child. Another donor, Tuvi's old friend from their National Defense Academy days, is on his way from Mumbai, but will reach the hospital only around 5 this morning. As of now, there's just you, love. Payoj, run and let the doctors know she's here. Tuvik came to around midday, and his parents and Lachak were allowed to go and see him. Everyone else was asked to wait till he was out of the ICU. It was so like him, thought a tear-soaked Lachak, to comment on how pale she was looking, dismissing his own injury with the flash of a dimple before relapsing into sleep. She didn't tell him that she was rather lightheaded from loss of blood, having insisted on contributing 2 of the 3 units of blood required by Tuvik. The naval officer's flight from Bombay had been delayed, and she was too terrified to wait. He'd reached in time, though, to donate the last unit and scold her roundly for having gone above the safe limit. That wasn't brave, that was foolhardy, he'd informed her severely. I'd be a fool for Tuvi 1,000,000 times over, she stated with simple conviction, and had been rewarded with an exasperated but warm hug. 5 days later, a rapidly recovering Tuvik was brought home and installed in his, and soon to be hers, bedroom. In between a steady stream of visitors, he'd spoken to his parents and rescheduled the wedding for the end of the month, ignoring all protests. Now that everyone knows that she's given me her blood, he announced with tongue-in-cheek solemnity, I've got to make an honest woman of her. Lachak sat on the bed, helping the injured hero eat a sandwich. The QQ, the last visitors of the day, were twittering amusingly, making him laugh. Payoj walked in, grinning when Kanak fluttered her lashes unceasingly, and went to perch on an ottoman next to her. Conversation drifted pleasantly till he suddenly exclaimed, "Oh, I've been meaning to ask you, how did you get to the hospital that night, Lachak?" When Ranjan called to say that the car's fan belt had snapped and he couldn't find a mechanic at that time of the night, we just didn't know what to do. I thought I'd take another car and go, but no one could get through to you, and we weren't sure if you'd already taken a cab. So we just waited. Well, I did take a cab, she returned, giving him a surprised look. The one you guys arranged for me, presumably after this Ranjan, your new driver, told you he couldn't make it. Don't you remember? The cab we arranged? Payoj raised a puzzled eyebrow. What are you talking about? Didn't you take an Uber? Why would I take an Uber when you'd sent me the cab? She demanded, equally puzzled. You or maybe someone else. He said he'd been asked to pick me up because he lives so close to the airport. If none of you sent him, how did he know about the accident and that I was arriving by that particular flight? No one but Ahem and I knew that the car had broken down, Payoj assured her, frowning intently. In fact, we were just trying to figure out what to do since your mobile was unreachable when you walked in. There was no way somebody else could have. You mean you just climbed into some strange cabbie's vehicle at that time of the night just because he claimed that one of us had sent him? You moron! How could you take such a risk? Even at her most distraught, my Lychee is a very smart girl, as all her colleagues would testify. Tuvi intervened mildly, reaching out to clasp her hand. Maybe she'll tell you why she climbed into that cab, if you'll give her a chance, PJ. PJ! Gasped Kanak to a chorus of giggles from the QQ. Seriously? Well, because I knew the guy, didn't I? Lachak retorted, too focused on the dialogue to join in the merriment. In fact, you all do. It was Jaswinder, for God's sake. Why would it even occur to me to doubt him? The poor man drove like a maniac to get me to the hospital. Even ran out of petrol just across the road because he'd been too worried to check the dial. In fact, I'm surprised he hasn't yet come to visit. What? You surely can't have forgotten him, you two? She appealed, because the two cousins were staring at her with identical expressions of blank astonishment. Which Jaswinder are you talking about? Payoj inquired carefully, exchanging a quick look with Tuviksh. Lachak threw up her hands in exasperation. How many Jaswinders ferry the family around? She demanded. Come on, guys, what's wrong with you? We even attended his sister's wedding, for heaven's sake. And Tuviksh was shaking his head, so pale suddenly that she was afraid he would pass out. That can't be, Lachak, he said, his voice stiff with shock, agitation. Did the cabbie have a falling out with the family so that they'd stopped using his services? You must be mistaken. Perhaps you confused him with somebody else in the dark? He was looking for me, Tuvi, she pointed out, bewildered by the response. He spotted me in the crowd, called out to me, told me he'd been asked to pick me up, and kept talking to me along the way. He spoke about his sister's pregnancy, his brother's new job, his kids and his wife, and how could I have possibly confused him with someone else? That's crazy, whispered Payoj, his face as pale as Tuvi's. I can't. There's no way. How, man? He fixed Tuviksh with an accusing glance. You told her what happened, right? The two of you wove this story together as some kind of macabre joke, didn't you? Are you out of your mind? Tuvi's voice was razor sharp, his eyes coldly furious. What kind of sick bastard do you take me for? The quintet stared at the two men and at each other, confused and apprehensive. If the cousins were pulling a stunt, they had both missed their calling. The performance was flawless. Payoj knuckled his eyes, evidently ashamed of his outburst. I'm sorry, Tuvi, he muttered. That was a stupid thing to say, but then what Lachak is telling us is so unbelievable that What's so unbelievable about her being picked up from the airport by a cabbie? Even we know by name, dude. Mehak demanded, giving Payoj a dirty look. And why would she, with or without Tuvi's involvement, make up something like that? To me, it looks like the two of you are playing some sort of prank on us. The two men stared at the five girls for a long moment. Lachak expected them to start laughing, bringing the joke, whatever it was, to an end. Instead, Tuviksh requested softly, no trace of humor in his voice. Ada, would you please go get my mom? Don't repeat this conversation to her. Just tell her I'm asking for her. I'm not sending Payoj because I don't want you girls to think he's coached her. Please, now. So Ada left the room and the rest of them waited in silence for the few minutes it took her to return with Shreya Chauhan in tow. What's the matter? Tuvi's mom inquired, her eyes concerned. You feeling okay, beta? I'm fine, ma, Tuviksh assured her quickly. I just wanted you to tell Lachak about Jaswinder. She was asking after him. They saw Shreya's eyes widen and then grow sad. Oh, I forgot that she knows nothing about the tragedy. She reached out to squeeze Lachak's shoulder and explained, with the wedding so close, we didn't want to upset you, my dear. But now that you've asked, she sighed. And for no apparent reason, Lachak felt goosebumps prickle along her arms and the back of her neck. Jaswinder, well, a fortnight ago, he met with an accident. Eyewitnesses said that his cab stalled at a crossroads. In fact, the crossroads just across from the R&R hospital. Apparently, a speeding truck jumping the signal from his right drove full tilt into the driver's side of the vehicle. Jaswinder was killed on the spot, already dead when they cut him out of the wreckage. It was such a shock to all of us. His poor wife, those young kids. We did what we could, but what can compensate for the loss of a son, a husband, a father? The family is devastated, struggling to accept what happened. Such a horrible, horrible tragedy. And all because some drunken truck driver couldn't keep his feet off the accelerator. Lachak staggered and Mehak grabbed and steadied her. She could see her own shock reflected in the eyes of her friends. Oh my God, she whispered, her hands trembling in Mehak's grasp. I would never. How could that be? And yet, oh no, was that why my mobile was totally off the grid? Because being inside that car was like, were we between worlds, beyond time somehow? That sounds crazy, but how else? And that's why he won't accept. That's why he... It struck her like lightning and she gasped. Oh, that's why he couldn't drive beyond the R&R crossroads. Because that's where his car, that's where he... And yet he came back. Just for you, Tuvi. Literally crossing worlds to keep you alive. As she and Tuviksh stared at each other, Shreya demanded worriedly, what is going on, kids? For God's sake, what's all this about crossing worlds? Who are you talking about, sweetheart? Will someone tell me what's the Jaswinder angle? The poor guy's dead, isn't he? Indeed, Tuvik admitted, his eyes full of wonder and compassion as he turned to look at his bewildered mother. It seems, though, that some part of him survived, waiting to repay what he thought was a debt of gratitude to me, to us, Mom. I hope he's at peace now, because his repayment has gone way beyond what he owed. My life, for the little kindness, the small monetary support we provided. It wasn't just that, Lachak told him softly, the dead man's words ringing in her ears. He's fighting for his life with the same courage with which he has always fought for his country and his people, and our prayers and blessings are fighting right by his side. Your kindness mattered a lot, but your courage as a soldier mattered more. He didn't want you to lose this battle, Tuvi. Others were around to rush you to the hospital, but he was the only one available to bring me to you. So he did. In the end, it was that simple. Gratitude is a funny thing, isn't it? For some, it breeds resentment, impatience, even sullen defiance. And I've come across many such in my journey through life. For others, it's a light they carry in their heart and soul, something they use to illuminate the whole world. The need to share that light is so intense sometimes that even death cannot bar their way. As I said in the beginning, the truth of the incident around which I have woven this tale has been corroborated by several people, and I remember that its narration would inevitably bring tears to my aunt's eyes and give us all goosebumps. I hope that spinning this rather small incident out into a more entertaining and detailed story has helped you savor it more, adding to the pathos and the wonder of it. Now, at the beginning of both parts of this particular episode, I sang you some lines from a couple of popular numbers, both of which have the word Wafa embedded within them. Now, from that, those of you who understand Hindi may have concluded that the story is going to be about a pair of lovers, or people who really were meant to be together but were separated because of some reason, and somehow something eerie was involved along the way. But let me tell you that Wafa, which translates into loyalty in English, that's the closest translation that I can think of, is never confined to a romantic relationship alone. Loyalty is a quality in you, and it's a gift for the other person, and you may decide to give it to somebody other than a romantic partner. It could be somebody you love and respect in your own family. It could be a dear friend who you feel very close to. It could be an ideal person, a guru of some kind, a colleague, a boss. God knows, there are so many possibilities. But when you feel like that towards somebody and you credit them with having helped you either physically, financially, spiritually, emotionally, in whichever way, you do have the opportunity to show that wafa, that loyalty to them as well, and they to you. So, for example, in this story, the dead man who came back to help didn't do so because he was in love with the male protagonist, Tuvik, was he? He wasn't. It was just because he really respected this man and really thought he deserved all the support and all the help that he could get to stay alive, because he had to fight death and come out of it. And that is why he thought that in return for whatever Dr. Viksh had done for him, this was the least he could do. So, while you wait for me to come back with my new episode next week, do think of all the people around you whom you love and towards whom you feel the sense of wafa, the sense of loyalty, and those who love you and feel the sense of loyalty towards you. And be grateful, be thankful that they're around you, they are with you in this amazing and sometimes incredible journey called life. And while you do that, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this channel and its contents with everyone and anyone you think is interested in listening to these very original stories, which they would never get to hear anywhere else, and which always have something, a kernel of the eternal truth buried within the narrative. And till we see each other again, goodbye and good luck. Have a wonderful week ahead, and be back here in time to listen to the next story that I'm going to bring for you next week. Bye.